Hello and welcome to Music with Mascot. This is Minou the Cat. Minou the Cat is a Siberian. She's hypoallergenic and she doesn't want to be in my lap right now. Sometimes she will just sit in my lap. Oh, no, maybe she will. There we go. She found a comfy position. She is purring. Minou is a wonderful cat. She has an amazing personality. Generally, I don't like cats. But my wife wanted a cat, and I'm allergic, so we had to find a Siberian that was tested for the allergen. So if you're allergic to cats and you want a cat, look up Siberian cats. Mostly they have great personalities, and they're hypoallergenic. All right, yes, I know that Minou is kitty in French, so she's Kitty the cat. But she doesn't care. She's Minou, and she will always be Minou. Thank you, my dear. Today, aside from playing my drum, I'm going to go over the 10 progressive rock albums that I have listened to more than any other. Now, because I'm 65 years old, and this is a listened to most in my life, it's going to be stuff from early in the progressive rock era. Modern stuff I do listen to, Spock's Beard, Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree. I love that music. But I haven't listened to it as much as I have listened to the older stuff. And I still go back to the older stuff. Not necessarily because it's better, because the new stuff is very good, but because it's familiar, I know it, I love it, and I like to listen to it over and over again. So, without further ado, here are the 10 progressive rock albums that I have listened to more than any other. Let me slide these books out of the way. There we go. And I will just stack them here on the drum as we go. Kansas. This is the first Kansas album. It is, I don't know if it's my favorite Kansas album, but it's certainly the one that I go back to again and again and again, and I listen to it. There are a number of songs in here that I just love. Can I Tell You? Bringing It Back, which is a cover of Bringing It Back from Mexico. Lonely Wind is a beautiful song. It's a ballad for those of you that liked it slipped my mind, the name of the ballad. Maybe I'll post it up here. Belexis, which I played in a cover band years ago. Journey from Maria Braun, which is a wonderful piece of music. It's about Narcissus and Goldman, the Hesse novel. The Pilgrimage, Aperçu, and Death of Mother Nature Suite on side 2. This is the lineup that Kansas had through its peak period. The quality of the music maybe went down a little bit as the band members started to change. The music was different. I wasn't as fond of it. But the first 5 albums, phenomenal. 6th album, anyway. This is a great place to start if you've not listened to Kansas. Leftoverture is their most famous album, which has Magnum Opus, which is a pure prog rock of the highest order. One song, the last song on that album. Kansas. Go down from the bottom. You have to read the newspaper. Yeah. The St. Cleve Chronicle. This is from January 7th, 1972, their issue of the St. Cleve Chronicle, which talks about Gerald Little Milton Bostock, who supposedly wrote a poem called Thick as a Brick. And the boys in Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson in particular, wrote an album around said poem. Of course, he wrote said poem too. This album cover is probably one of the more unique ones. I don't know if the re-releases are being re-released with this cover or not. It's a little hard to find. They did this whole thing tongue-in-cheek. The guys in the band wrote this newspaper, and it's pretty funny. UFO sighting sensation. Non-rabbit missing. Very Monty Python-esque. Masked gunmen hold up village post office. Sandcastle man. We're retiring from making sandcastles. Anyway, let's get to the music. Thick as a Brick. Thick as a Brick is a concept album with one piece of music on it. Part 1's on side 1, part 2 is on side 2. This runs the gamut from starting off little acoustics to really hard prog rock to a little off-the-wall stuff on the second side. But they do it right because they don't carry it out too long so that you become bored. At least I don't. Thick as a Brick. I have listened to this album so many times. I don't even know what happened to the original album, but I did have to buy a replacement at some point in the 70s. And as you see, the newspaper is missing. They've taken some of it. They've taken the cover, they've taken the back cover, they've taken some stuff in the middle, including Thick as a Brick by Gerald Little Milton Bostock. Okay, it's by Ian Anderson, who is brilliant in and of himself. They even have a review of the new Tull LP out February 18th, and that would have been 72. Great album. I'm a huge Jethro Tull fan, and if I just stuck with Jethro Tull, I probably have 2 or 3 other albums that would be among the ones that are most listened to. Aqualung would come after this, but I like this better than Aqualung. All right. Rush. Rush comes from this era as well. Their first album was not prog, it was more of a blues rock kind of thing. Then they changed drummers and got Neil Peart, who also wrote really interesting lyrics for them. This is my favorite Rush album, and it's also the one that I listen to the most. Side 1, A Farewell to Kings, and Side 2, Xanadu. Starts off with a little nylon string guitar. Xanadu is just a beautifully instrumented prog rock piece. And you'll hear different instruments in there. Geddy Lee first used the synthesizer, I think, on this album. Closer to the Heart was their top 40 hit of the day. May have been their first top 40 hit, I don't know. Cinderella Man, Madrigal, and Cygnus X1, which is a brilliant sci-fi piece of music. And it's a great tune for if you want to show off your stereo system, if you have something you want to show off. It's got intricacies, and it's only part 1 because the album Hemispheres, first side of that album, is part 2. Part 1's better than part 2. More interesting, more diverse, proggier, let's say. There you have the band and the lyrics on the inside. Ambrosia. This may be a group that you've never heard of. They were not hugely well known, and they were certainly not hugely well known as a prog rock group, but their first album was prog, and great music, great prog. Nice, Nice, Very Nice, based on a Kurt Vonnegut poem. Time Waits for No One, with some very interesting rhythms in it. Holding On to Yesterday is a more traditional rock ballad. World, Leave Me Alone. Yeah, I kind of feel that from time to time. On side 2, Make Us All Aware, Lover Arrive, another kind of standard rock ballad. Then Mama Frog and Drink of Water. And in there you'll get a little reading of Alice in Wonderland. Little lyric sheet came with it. And these are the sleeves that I was using back in the 70s when I bought albums. They're pretty similar to what we have now in the static-free sleeves, except it's got a lot of paper around the plastic that is static-free. A lot of my albums have that sleeve in them. Now I'm putting cover sleeves to protect. As you see, it's coming apart there. And there's some shelfware being slid in and out. It's available streaming. If you haven't heard it, give it a listen. Gentle Giant, Free Hand. This is an amazing prog album. The rhythms are sometimes bizarre. The vocals on Reflection are kind of a fugue. The artwork is great. I don't know if you get artwork like that anymore on albums. Time to Kill His Last Voyage, Talibant, and Mobile. Or Mobile. I don't know which. This is my favorite of the Gentle Giant albums. My second favorite is Octopus. But this one is at their peak. I think this is they have worked and started from, I don't know if you would say more acceptable prog to get to here, which is just totally awesome. You definitely notice the classical training behind the musicians. And this is a little bit, it's a little bit hard. It's hard, it's rock, it's progressive, it's heavy at times. Definitely a go-to. Gentle Giant, Free Hand. Nektar, another lesser-known band, although they are still putting out albums from what I see. They took a long hiatus, and I have listened and streamed a couple of the new ones. I have not checked the great artwork. Picture of the band live. Remember the Future. This is a concept album. Also, the whole thing, part 1 is on side 1. Part 2 is on side 2. Images of the Past, Wheel of Time, Remember the Future, and Confusion on side 1. Returning Light, Questions and Answers, Tomorrow Never Comes, Path of Light, Recognition, and Let It Grow on side 2. Great guitar work, great keyboard work. The bass and drums are up to the standard of prog rock of the day. Remember the Future. Okay, now we're getting down to the 4 that I listened to probably more than any other prog rock albums. I'm going to go with the one that I've probably listened to most, Close to the Edge. I wasn't keeping a logbook of the number of times I read this stuff or listened to this stuff. But Close to the Edge. It is still a favorite of mine. Rick Wakeman on keyboards is just phenomenal. Steve Howe at his height. Guitar work, he maintained that level for quite a while thereafter. Chris Squire on bass. He was at one point voted the best bassist in rock. You'll see evidence of that on the title piece, especially in Close to the Edge. Bill Bruford, who left to join King Crimson after this album. He also has had a long career in jazz, which you'll hear about him on the channel. And of course, John Anderson, lyrics and vocals. Close to the Edge is side 1, 4 parts. Solid Time of Change, Total Mass Retain, I Get Up, I Get Down, and Seasons of Man. Each one is a unique piece of music, but it is part of a whole. It belongs together, just like a really good symphony. You know, you listen to one movement and you feel kind of incomplete. Beethoven's Ninth is really like that for me. Mahler's Third. One movement alone is phenomenal, but it's not, it's lonely. It needs more to be complete. Side 2 and You and I, which is also 4 parts. Chord of Life, Eclipse, Preacher and Teacher, and Apocalypse. And then Siberian Katru. Always wondered what a katru was. It's a bird. I like birds. I like Siberian Katru. You will find odd rhythms. You'll find amazing riffs by all of the musicians on this. This is the top of a lot of best prog albums ever. You run across those here and there. Almost always it's number 1. Sometimes it's number 2. Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon is right up there. I think this is a better album, but that's just personal taste. I like Pink Floyd. I listen to them a lot. They would be just slightly down on the list of 10 of my top 10. My favorite is The Wall. I'll discuss that at some point, perhaps. Again, Roger Dean cover art. He became the artist that did most of the Yes covers in 71. The Fragile album is the first one that he did. And his artwork is just wonderful. Take the idea of Close to the Edge, and he's got a projecting piece of land covered by water and waterfalls. So that's how he envisions this. The most recent album cover he did was Rick Wakeman's Yes Sonata, which I'll talk about at another point, because that was an interesting, fun concert when I saw Rick Wakeman on that tour. King Crimson Red. A lot of people credit King Crimson with really starting prog rock or prog metal with their album In the Court of the Crimson King, and that has some amazing and beautiful pieces. Some hard pieces, 21st Century Schizoid Man, but it's not the one that I listen to the most. It's not the one I listen to the least either. But Red. This is side 1 is prog metal. Red, Fallen Angel, One More Red Nightmare. All of them are brilliant pieces of music. Robert Fripp wrote Red. Fripp and Wetton wrote One More Red Nightmare, and they had a chap by the name of Palmer James who wrote lyrics sometimes, wrote lyrics to Fallen Angel. I think Wetton must have written the lyrics to One More Red Nightmare. Side 2. This is the side I go to, but I skip the first track. Providence is kind of a group improv thing. Jazz musicians do it a lot better than rock musicians do. It's acceptable, but it's not that good. Starless, however, is brilliant. One of my all-time favorite prog rock pieces. I go back to it again and again. I saw them perform this in concert on their last tour, and with 3 drummers, it was just amazing. Of course, John Wetton is no longer with us. Bill Bruford hadn't played with Crimson for a long time. Adrian Belew had left the band by the time I saw them. But they played the old stuff amazingly well and the new stuff amazingly well. King Crimson is one of the ultimate prog rock bands, up there with Yes and early Genesis. Starless. If you're interested, just stream the tune. It's great. It runs little odd rhythms in the second half. The first half is mellotron, bass, John Wetton singing, Bill Bruford always in the background keeping time. The second part is really close to jazz. There is a particular rhythmic and melodic theme that comes in at the end of the first part of the song, and it starts off with just bass. And from there, slowly but surely, everybody gets in on the act. They have great sax. Ian McDonald played the sax on that. Yep, Ian McDonald played alto sax, Mel Collins soprano sax, David Cross violin. You'll have to hear the violin on that. Ian McDonald went on to be a part of Foreigner, but he was in the original King Crimson lineup on the Court of the Crimson King. And I think he played flute and sax on that. Red. Genesis, Selling England by the Pound. I had a hard time trying to figure out if I listened to this more or A Trick of the Tail more. I like A Trick of the Tail as well. This is my favorite of the main lineup of Genesis when Peter Gabriel was still with them. Trick of the Tail is after he left. I listened to side 1 a lot more than side 2, even though side 2 is very good. Side 1, Dancing with the Moonlit Night, I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe, and Firth of Fifth. More Fool Me is the 4th song on that side. It's okay. First time Phil Collins sang in Genesis and was recorded. But the 3, Dancing with the Moonlit Night, I Know What I Like, I Know What I Like, and especially Firth of Fifth. Firth of Fifth has a phenomenal piano introduction from Tony Banks. There's a wonderful flute solo in it, Peter Gabriel playing that. The guitar work, Steve Hackett is just amazing and will always be amazing. I saw him a year and a half ago on tour. Half the concert, the first half, was dedicated to his music, his solo music, which is great. And the second half of the concert was the album Foxtrot, which is a very good Genesis album, Prog. But it's Firth of Fifth that I just love on here. If I had to choose one song of all of Genesis to have and to listen to, it would be Firth of Fifth. Side 2, the Battle of Epping Forest, which is basically about a gang war, I think. After the Ordeal, the Cinema Show. The Cinema Show is very pretty. Isle of Plenty. The Cinema Show also has some very nice solo work in it. It's a lot mellower than the other pieces on here. And it's a pleasure to just sit back and listen to. And there you see my pieces that I put in there. And then we have the lyrics on a separate sheet. Great album. Not a fan of Genesis in the post-Prog years. And then there were 3 I kind of liked, but after that, I have a couple of the albums. I don't listen to them. And Brain Salad Surgery, Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. A gentleman by the name of Geiger did the artwork. And if you have an old enough edition, there's a little tip of the phallus right there going up to her mouth with sexual overtones, of course. At some point, they airbrushed that out of the picture. Again, excellent artwork to go with an outstanding album. All right. So, there's no information on the back of the album. So on side 1 is a nice arrangement of Jerusalem, a British hymn. Then you have Toccata. This was written originally by Ginastera, a very 20th century classical composer. And the story goes that they made their version of it on this album, which is, it's just awesome. It's probably not the kind of piece of music you're going to go listen to again and again, but some of the stuff is just out there. And they asked Ginastera if they could have permission to use the piece of music, and he said no, through his agents. So Keith Emerson contacted his agent and said, can you listen to it? And they said, no, he's a recluse. He doesn't meet with a lot of people or listen to a lot of people. And so Keith Emerson found out where he lived and went and visited him with a recording of this. And he was blown away by it. I guess the word that, according to Keith Emerson, the word he used was formidable. And that it is. After that, you have a very typical Greg Lake ballad, Still You Turn Me On. I like his ballads. I loved his side of Works, the Works double album. Benny the Bouncer, that's just fun and funny. And then you start Carnival 9. Carnival 9 is probably their magnum opus. It's definitely their magnum opus. It starts off with this overwhelming organ before the bass and drums come in, before the lyrics come in. It's almost like listening to a Bach organ piece, although it's Keith Emerson, and it's beautiful music. Then the band comes in, and they really are a power trio with drums, bass, sometimes guitar. Greg Lake does play guitar, and keyboards. And the keyboard is generally out in front, other than when Greg Lake is singing. His voice is great. He does have a really good guitar solo in Carnival 9 Part 1. Part 2 is this gothic piece with great piano work by Keith Emerson. Great percussion work by Carl Palmer, adding little background stuff that really adds to the tension of the music. And it's the second part of that song is almost like a jazz piano piece, jazz band feel to it. And Emerson was definitely influenced by blues and jazz. And then part 3 is a story. It's a story about AI versus man. Yeah, this was written and released in 1973. The idea that computers would eventually surpass us was already out there in science fiction, and they used that in this story. Eventually, AI gives in willingly, and the story is nice. The music is phenomenal. Solos in the center, guitar, bass, keyboard, drums, everything is just perfect. This is Emerson, Lake, and Palmer at their height. They had some other good albums, some other really good albums, but this is the be-all and end-all, as far as I'm concerned, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, the album here that I've listened to more than any other is Close to the Edge. And I will probably be talking about Yes and some of the members of the band in the future. And this channel will have jazz, so I'll be talking about Bill Bruford's jazz work. And in my next collection, assuming I release it in order that I'm recording it, which I hope to do, is going to be the top 10 fusion albums that I've listened to in my life over and over again. Well, if you made it this far, if I wasn't boring you too much, please hit the like and subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. I'll be posting videos on this channel very regularly, and I may focus a little more on jazz than on the others, but I will also have classical, fusion, and progressive rock, and some regular rock/pop that I really like. So, come on back. You may see the cat, you may see the dog, you may see our third animal, our other dog. We don't have a pet rat anymore.